Everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, it's going to be a little bit different than some of the other ones that I've done. Mostly in that I've been looking at a lot of the comments on YouTube as well as some of the responses that I've seen on other videos that I've done. But this one in particular, really, I just wanted to highlight it because it's one of the perfect interactions that I could have gotten on YouTube. And I'll probably be doing more videos like this in the future because I want to focus on the fans of DC and Marvel and any comic book really. The fans are the ones that really matter when it comes to these things. And well, this one was just perfect. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and read it to you. I love Green Lantern and its stories, especially Geoff John's run, the animated films and the animated series. I also love Jon Stewart. Oh, sorry, before I forget, it's written by Milkia Samuel 780. Sorry if I didn't say that name correctly, but yeah, it's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and continue. It says, I also love Jon Stewart, Hal Jordan, Kyle Rayner, Guy Gardner, etc. I have been working on six film scripts for a Green Lantern film saga pitch, and I have castings, draft scripts, and my own ideas for an entire saga, following the Emerald Knights. I also foreshadow Blackest Night as a two-part end to this saga. I have an entire saga pitch written below. Okay, so that's what he says. Or she, or I'm not sure. Anyway, it says, I thoroughly believe with real passion and vision Green Lantern could become DC's Star Wars. Now for me, this actually was kind of surprising. It was something that I didn't think about it, but if you realize a lot of the things that happens in DC Comics regarding the Green Lanterns, majority of their storylines take place in space. So yeah, I could see that too. Okay, so it continues. I hope to share my film someday on YouTube as well, or as film pitches. Sorry if I shared it first, but I'm just sharing your post. You definitely should show it on YouTube. Okay, so it continues. Film 1. Green Lantern First Flight. Hal Jordan's origin. Meeting an emotional turmoil, Hal Jordan may be cocky but fails to express his emotions after the same circumstances with his mother dying from cancer and Hal feeling emotionally responsible. The hubris. Okay, so in addition to coming to terms with his complicated feelings of losing both his father and now the fear of loss that he has about losing his mother. But he also needs to accept his emotions and express his fears if he wants to grow. He also has problems with expressing his feelings towards Carol Ferris, his boss. Now, the important thing, this is something that I like about this, is that he's tying this all to emotions. And the fact is, when it comes to the Green Lantern Corps, this is the thing they always forget, especially in many of the movies, or the live-action movie, or even in the animated ones. It's not tied specifically to their will when it comes to the Green Lantern Corps. Their power is tied also to the emotion. It's called the emotional spectrum for a reason. There's the emotional, it's the emotional energy of all living things. And so the will is supposed to be an emotion of choice, the emotion to overcome, essentially. But okay, so it says, he's unable to express his feelings towards Carol Ferris, who begins the film as someone who's wise to wise to Hal's cocky macho man bravado, and doesn't fall for it. Now, I'll say this. This kind of reminds me a little bit of the Green Lantern movie that they already did, and it's when it comes to this particular point, it's not bad. It's just that when I see Hal, I don't see him as simply macho man bravado. I see him as a man who is struggling with his emotions, sure, but it's a mask to cover, essentially. Well, I guess this is kind of what he's saying too. This post kind of says this, so I'll give him that. It says essentially that he has trouble expressing his emotions, and Carol can see right through it. Okay, so it continues. But when he eventually does share how much he hates himself and how much he's truly scared about letting others down, just like he blames himself for his father and his mother's death, that's why he goes head first into action to compensate for his own inner hatred and guilt. I like this in particular because it's not about fear at this as much. It's really not about fear in this situation. He's not afraid of his own shadow or afraid of not living up to his father's standards or whatever. He feels an inner hatred towards himself because of his own hubris of ego, pride, and all this. but hatred and guilt. He has essentially found guilt and something that's not his fault. And so it continues. The comment continues. I also want to ground this story for the first half, and later explore the Green Lantern Corps in the second act, with Abin crashing into Earth and Hal taking up the mantle as Green Lantern, where he is also partnered up with Sinestro, explores Oa and meets the Guardians and all kinds of Green Lantern members / aliens like Tomar-Re, Chip, Boudica, Kilowog, who gives him a hard time as usual, as a trainee, calling him a poozer, but soon grows to like Hal for his natural instincts with danger. Now, personally, when I think of Hal Jordan, I think all this works, but the fact is you can't tell the origin story so many times, and I feel like it would be great if they just picked up with Hal Jordan how he is, but I understand why. The suggestion is great. If you're going to start over, it's pretty much exactly the same as the original movie. In fact, I'd say the only problem that the other movie had was some of the side characters, and I think some of the overacting a little bit of Ryan Reynolds. I think he kind of overacted the macho bravado. It was a little bit too much. Personally, I think that he was more noble than anything, but he was also cocky, like this person said. So it continues. Sinestro is still in mourning after learning about Abin's death, and though he hides his distaste for Hal as Abin's successor, he soon learns to open up himself to Hal and accept him as a partner, while simultaneously teasing his own inner hatred for the Guardians and their hypocrisy and bureaucratic opposition to handling intergalactic threats. This one reminds me a little bit of Green Lantern First Flight. This is kind of how it was depicted. So it continues. The villain in this film would be Krona and the Manhunters. Now this one I like. Okay, I like this. Who they act as a direct personification of cold, emotionless machines that the Guardians first used, and Krona would act as his own quest. He would act in his own quest to get revenge on the Guardians for banishing him. Even though this person says, even though my take on Krona was banished, basically this person's take on Krona was banished only because he wanted to explore what existed outside of the universe. The rest of the Guardians opposed his actions with no legitimate justification, thus allowing Krona to activate a failsafe and for the Manhunters to go rogue years ago. After a millennia of unjust banishment, Krona, well, I don't feel that it's unjust. I feel that it's quite just, but it was really still the Manhunters. I mean, it wasn't the Manhunters' fault. It was the fault of the Guardians, but the failsafe was activated by Krona, so it's kind of, if I read that incorrectly, oh well, I'm sorry about that. But anyway, it says Krona returns to get even and reactivates the Manhunters to take out the Corps. Hal Jordan and Sinestro together in a training day-esque premise act to stop him, and Krona acts as a dark reflection of Hal and his natural instincts to distaste of authority. When Krona went against unjust authority, he was punished just as Hal has over the years, and Krona tries to persuade him. But Hal learns to overcome his inner hatred and fear of letting others down, as he's learnt throughout the film to embrace his emotions and accept his fears and insecurities. Working alongside Sinestro, they defeat Krona and the Manhunters. Hal is respected amongst the Green Lantern Corps and Oa, and amongst Sinestro. Hal comes to terms with his insecurities and learns to make peace with the loss of his parents and discovers a new purpose in life, while opening himself up to Carol, teasing their eventual romance. Furthermore, we should also this person continues. Furthermore, we would reveal at the end that the Guardians secretly knew about the Manhunters, yet do not share their connections with any of the Green Lanterns. And it is only when Krona tells Sinestro about how the Manhunters were created by the Guardians and killed millions, especially Sector 666, only then does Sinestro feel betrayed by his Corps and beliefs, thus forcing Sinestro to make it seem that Krona committed suicide when he really killed himself with a ring and began devising a plan. When he really, he really killed himself with a ring and began devising a plan, a plan to end the injustice teasing his downfall. Post-credit scene also teases Jon Stewart and Atrocitus. I like this, I really do. Film number 2 continues. Green Lantern, Rage of the Red Lanterns introduce Atrocitus and the Red Lanterns as new Lantern factions, acting as rebellious vigilantes against the Guardians, as Atrocitus, much like the comic book character, is burdened by the loss of his family and people under the Manhunters and blames the Guardians, as he learned that they were responsible from the time that he was the 5 inversions hypothetically explored in the Green Lantern anthology show. Atrocitus forms the Red Lanterns to kill members of the Green Lantern Corps to get closer to Oa. Hal and Sinestro are introduced. They are introduced to new Lanterns, Jon Stewart and Guy Gardner, and with Kilowog and Tomar's help, they separate into teams to stop the Red Lanterns. Hal also learns to accept new allies and has to deal with Carol Ferris being taken over by the Star Sapphires and /Zamarons, who left the Guardians to create the Star Sapphire Corps of Love, essentially revolving around a theme of accepting love and not hatred. We also have Sinestro reveal the lies of the Guardians that they have been hiding about the Manhunters, and Ganthet takes full responsibility, as he and another Guardian Sid, I always forget this name, sorry about that. Okay, so it continues. They admit to their actions, feeling nothing but guilt and shame. The Guardians are forced to banish Ganthet as well after he opens up. I'm not going to share everything, but it says here, as well as he opens up about the truth and they discover his experiments to use the blue light of hope as a power source. Luckily, Sade gives Ganthet the means to activate the blue light initiative to depower all Red Lanterns. Now, I love all this, mainly because of the fact that it reminds me of the Green Lantern, the animated series, but has a slightly more mature feel to it. And at the end of this, he says that this whole movie will tease Saint Walker. I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna read every single one all the way through. I mean, I want him to be able to really be able to talk about it for himself. And so in film 3, it's Green Lantern, Fear, adapting Sinestro Corps War. So this is the next movie. Film 4, Green Lantern, Agent Orange. Obviously, this one's going to be hinting the Orange Lanterns. I think it's Malice. I'm pretty sure that was the... Or, like, it's kind of like Malice / Jealousy. It's kind of hard to describe. It's always depicted differently depending on whether it's animation or comic books. It's always unique. I enjoy these types of stories. Then you have Film 5. It says Green Lantern, Blackest Night, Part 1. It says, I plan to have my take on William Hand introduced in Film 5, but also teased in Film 1. In Film 5, he would actually be friends with Kyle Rayner, be college roommates, and show how much Kyle cares for William as a friend. My take on William Hand would be in his early / mid-20s, and be a mentally struggling / suicidally depressed person, as he struggled with hearing voices of the dead his entire life, and has been thought of as mentally ill by his family, acting as the black sheep of the Hand family, isolated by his brothers and emotionally disregarded by his parents, who have treated him with cold, controlling discontent as they see him as a failure, leaving William to be emotionally alone his entire life until Kyle treats him like a real person, giving William compassion. In Film 5, he says, I would begin The Blackest Night by having it centered around all of Earth's Green Lanterns, Hal, John, Guy, and Kyle. This is one of the things I love about this, is the fact that he wrote something involving Kyle Rayner, which I feel like they would not do in DC right now. It seems like they are very much not eager to adapt actual comic books. So hopefully they will. I really hope that this pitch would actually work out from this man's favor, or this person's favor. So it continues. Attempting to save William Hand from Sinestro and Atrocitus from working together to try and kill William to prevent the Blackest Night, as he is destined to unleash Necron, Not only that, but the Guardians would also order Green Lanterns from all sectors to hunt down William Hand. Sorry, my mouth is getting dry. As they, too, are terrified by Blackest Night. The Guardians, as hypocrites to their code, thus creating massive tension and conflict throughout the Corps, it all being a race to save this one guy to prevent the Blackest Night. And it also tackles concepts and questions that even Hal and John struggle with. Is one life worth saving when the universe is at stake? Is killing William really the right option? Especially if he has suicidal tendencies? And then Film 6 says, it's Film 6, Blackest Night, Part 2. You have the Green Lantern Corps anthology series. You get to discover different Green Lanterns who aren't just from Earth, like Kilowog, Arissa, Jade, Razor, Katmatui, Soranik Natu, Tomar-Ray, Chip, Mogo, and more of the DC Intergalactic Universe. Person wrote, it continues, or finishes really. The films I haven't talked about contain certain spoilers and key story details I'm not ready yet to unveil, but hopefully someday soon. This person really needs to put this out there. I mean, seriously, it's one of the best simply the best comments that I've seen anywhere on YouTube in regards to a Green Lantern subject, and the fact that this person put this all together while you have actual Warner Brothers and DC struggling to put something together. I feel like they really need to hear this person's pitch. I literally will probably end up going back here just to check this out when I'm thinking about Green Lanterns. It's honestly one of the best things I've read, and it's a really great concept. Personally, I hope I see this in the movies. Well, that's all I'm going to talk about for today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching Creativity. See you next time. Goodbye.